Hey, we're just moving right along. Welcome to Chapter 7, Module number 2. You just finished the multiplication or the division checkpoint in the last session. That's all done. Great job. We are now going to move on to Session 1 of Module 2. All right, with that, there we go. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at division with money. Okay, so we're going to kind of look at dividing by fractions, but using money to help us understand what we're kind of doing. We have problems and investigations where we have a quantitative and part partitive. Yeah, that's a new word for Mr. Keller. And you know what? I was going to stop and record, but you know what? I'm going to go with it. We're going to use this. We're going to break things in part or use quotients. So we're going to look at, you'll need your student books, pages 265 and 266. Wow, that word caught me off, got me off balance there. I wasn't expecting it. Hey, when we're all done, we do have some student book work to do, so make sure you finish page 267 for next lesson. Before we get going, let's make sure we then go ahead to remember for student book, we had page 264 from last lesson, home connections, page 137 and 138. Here we go. There's page 264. There are your answers. Keep that in mind. Know that your problems might vary, but answers should be the same, right? So hopefully you are using ratio tables to kind of figure things out. Remember, we've been doing ratio tables with our problem strings for the last 2 lessons, so that should help you out. And your home connections book, same sort of thing. We do have a review, so pause the video, correct what you need to correct, and reach out to your teachers if you are struggling in any of these problems. All right, so let's start off with a problem string. Okay, you're gonna need your notebook again. Again, I know we've been doing problem strings a lot, but this next problem string is pretty easy because we're all pretty familiar with money, and I have a feeling that we're just going to kind of roll right through this. All right, so we're going to do fraction division with money. All right, so we want you to think of fractions with money, right? So, and I'm going to try to share a little secret with you as we go through this. So, how many dimes are there in a dollar? Now, that should be pretty easy, but we know that 1/10 of a dollar is a dime, which is why you see this. And we're converting the dime to 1/10, right? We've been doing this since our first lesson. And when we divide a dollar by 1/10, we get 10 dimes, right? But what do you notice, right? Are we really dividing by 1/10 or are we multiplying by 10? That's an interesting concept, right? Because it equals the same thing. And what I like to tell my students is that we don't like to divide by fractions because it gets a little sticky. So we like to multiply, and by the way that we can multiply is, I'm going to tell you a secret now. Take our denominator and then make it the numerator. Make our numerator the new denominator and flip the fraction. We only flip the fraction on the right hand side of the product, and we are the quotient, and we then turn our division sign into a multiplication sign like this. So this is 1 over 1 times 10 over 1, and we get 10, right? Let's see if it works again. How many dimes are there in $2? Well, I know that there are 10 dimes in $1. So that makes sense that if I divide $2 into dimes, I'm going to have, right, 20 dimes, or 2 times the amount of dimes, right? That equals 20. This is working out pretty well. All right, so how many nickels are there in a dollar? Now remember, when we look at nickels, it's 1/20th of a dollar, right? Because it's half of a dime. So half of 1/10 is 1/20th. So we have we have our nickel, right? So if we are going to divide one or $1 by 1/20th, we would know that we have 20 nickels. We're all pretty familiar with that, right? But did you also notice, did I misspell that? Yes, I did. Look at that. You caught my mistake. All right, 20 nickels, or you also notice that it's 1 times 20 equals 20, right? All right, so how many nickels make $2, right? Well, I know 20 nickels makes $1, so I'm going to assume that all I have to do is carry that out um, like a ratio table, and that equals 20 nickels. Or if I take my 2, which I'm not going to do anything to, I'll leave the 2, change my division symbol to multiplication, and then do the reciprocal of 1 over 20, which is now 20 over 1. So 2 times 20 equals 40. Are you noticing a pattern, right? This works in all cases. So let's see if we can get our next page. Okay, so how many quarters are there in $1? Pretty easy, right? We know that 4 quarters are in a dollar. But we also know that if we take the reciprocal of 1/4 and make that 4 over 1, and we change our operation to multiplication, 1 times 4 is 4. That's how we get our answer. So how many quarters are in $4? That's interesting, right? Because we're taking 4, and what I'm going to do, we are taking the $4 and we are multiplying that by the reciprocal of 1/4, or excuse me for that, 4 over 1, which is 4, that equals 16. So our answer would be 16 quarters, right? It makes division of fractions a whole lot easier when you think of it this way, right? How many half dollars are there in $3? So how many halves are in 3? Actually, this looks very familiar. This looks like it was on our pretest, actually. I seem to remember that. But we'll take our 3 and we're going to multiply that by the reciprocal of 1/2. Do you remember what the reciprocal of 1/2 is? We flip our second fraction around so that the bottom number is on the top and the top number is on the bottom, which is 2 over 1, or 2 wholes, and that equals 6. Does that make sense that there are 6 half dollars? That there are 6 half dollars in 3? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So how many dimes are there in a half a dollar? That's a good question. So I don't change that one, right? But I am multiplying that by 10. So think of a half dollar, right? That's 50 cents. How many dimes would that be? Right? So you all have your answer. Now let's look. We've done the reciprocal, right? We've turned our 10 upside down, where we put the 10 on top, we put the 1 on the bottom and got 10. So this would equal to 10 halves, or you have an answer? 5, right? So would that make sense? 5 dimes in a half dollar. So how many nickels are there in a half dollar? So we're going to set up the problem the same way. 1/2 times, what is the reciprocal of 1/20th? 20, right? So what is 1/2? We do our multiplication, that's 20 halves, or 10. So our answer would be 10 nickels, right? So that looks good. Awesome. Well, I hope that you learned something today. The fraction dividing by fractions is quite simple when you kind of change that second part of the quotient and turn it around to a multiplication. We seem to be much familiar, or feels much better to multiply by a fraction than it is to divide by a fraction. Okay, so before we get going and before we leave today, we have some division stories you guys got to work through. On page 265 and 266, we got to look at some word problems and figure things out. Okay, so it says show your work, write an equation to represent the solution. So if we look at page 265, this is number one. Trading cards come in packs of 12. If Chris bought 300 cards, how many packs of cards did he buy? Right? So let's take a look, right? So if one pack, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a ratio table, right? Because I'm in love with ratio tables. I think they are fantastic. So if we have one pack equals 12 cards, and we have 300 cards, so we want to get all the way over here to 300. How many packs did we buy? Right? Well, I know that I can go straight to 10 packs, and using my ratio table knowledge that I know, I can make that 120, which I know I'm not even close to this 300 yet, so I gotta keep going, right? So I'm going to draw another line here, and I'm going to try how much is 20 packs, right? 20 packs would be double what 10 packs would be. That would be 240 packs. So I'm almost there, but I'm 60 away, right? What is half of 10, right? Half of 10 is 5, and half of 120, you see that? I'm looking here. I can either divide by 4 to get 5, or I can divide by 2 to get 5, or I can multiply by 5 and get what I have here. So, and then get 5. I'm going to divide by 2 because 10 to 5 dividing by 2. Dividing by 2 is pretty easy. I get 60. There I go. I have 240 plus 60. So that equals, right, 25 packs. And I'm going to delete all of those spaces. So my answer is 25 packs, right? So I'd write it out, make sure my answer has a label, and then I just solve that division problem. Remember, they did ask us to write the division problem. So if you're going to write your division problem, this is what I would put. Online, it's kind of hard because it doesn't have that division symbol. So I'm going to go 300 divided by 12. And that's how I would write that out, because that is my equation to represent the problem and the solution, right? And that's 25 packs. We're going to ask you to make sure that you do this on your unit assessment at the end. So make sure that you are answering everything that it's asking you to do, right? So solve each problem by showing your work, write an equation to represent the problem and the solution. Okay, so hopefully, I'm sorry, this is cards, right? And then this, my friend, is packs, right? Okay, so for tomorrow's lesson, we're going to go over these, or for your next lesson, whenever that happens to be. Finish page 265 and 266. Come back to us when you are done. And, well, with our next lesson, we'll go over the answers, and hopefully we've done well. All right. Again, if you have any questions on any of this, please reach out to your teachers. They'll be more than willing to go over any of these answers with you or any of these problems with you, and hopefully make sure that you understand exactly what you're doing with division, because division is division, man. That's all it is. It's just division, right? We're talking about division, just division. All right. Sorry. When you're all done with everything, you have, we're not doing April anymore. We are in May. So you have your May Number Corner online resources, as well as your Unit 7 online resources if there's extra work that you want to do. But you do have your student book page 267 to finish for our next lesson. So if you don't have any other questions, and if you do, reach out to your teachers. Um, they'll be more than happy to get in contact with you. If not, finish the rest of your work today and enjoy math.